success is so much more about the feeling that you get to take home at the end of the day when things have just kind of worked out the way you want it to do. And then 20 minutes later, it's like, oh no, now I got to go back into another one. We can shift some of the residential guys because maybe the market's a little soft and so there's not as much work. So we've been able to pivot and change and adjust quite a bit that way. There are so many smart people out there, coworkers that work in your company that can do it so much better than you. Don't stand in their way. You need to lift them up.
This is the Trade Stock Podcast. I'm your host, Justin White. Every week, I sit down with operators, leaders, and visionaries, both inside and outside the trades industry. The goal of this show is to compress decades of experience into a 1-hour conversation. The only thing I ask of you is if you learn from the show and you enjoy what we talk about, is to please share it with someone you care about, because together we can all go further. With that, let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to the Trades Talk Podcast. I'm here with Nathan Dirksen of 7Dees, the CEO, and we're going to be diving into the history of 7Dees. It's an incredible company, been around a long time. Nathan started as a crew leader, worked his way up to the CEO, and we're going to hear that story today. So Nathan, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Justin. It's quite an honor. You know, since you started this thing a little over a year ago, I've been an avid listener. So it's quite an honor to be even invited to sit and chat with you.
That's awesome. Well, I'm honored to have you on the podcast. We've been looking up to 7Dees for a very long time. It's just a great company. We're not necessarily in the Northwest, but being in the West Coast over here, we really do pay attention to what's going on. And 7Dees has been a great example. I would love to start the podcast out just a little bit about the company, 7Dees, how long it's been around, what you guys operate, the scale of the operation today. Would you mind giving us the 2 or 3 minute overview?
Sure. I mean, I think the biggest question, everybody's like, well, where does the 7Dees come from? And first of all, it starts with there's 7 siblings. It's Dean, Dave, Drew, Drake, Dennis. That's and Debbie, if there's one girl. That's what Bob Snodgrass started the nursery business out with back in 1956. So, you know, as it's 1920 or it's 2026. So this is our 70th year in business as 7Dees. There was a Drake 7Dees and a Dennis 7Dees for a while, and just recently we've merged together. We are now one company, and that's why we're just referring ourselves to just 7Dees, which goes back in history, as that's how it started. So that we're kind of back to our roots in the landscape industry. So we do pretty much everything. You know, you hear all focus on what you're really good at. Well, we do design, build, construction. We do residential maintenance. We do commercial construction. We do commercial maintenance. We have an interior division, and we have 6 retail garden centers. So yeah, we kind of do it all. When I started here with the company 38 years ago as a crewman, like you said, we didn't have all of those things. We were mainly a design build company. That's kind of where the roots of the landscape side of things come together. But there were 30 employees, and I just I jumped on a crew and started working. Today we're 350 employees. We think we'll breach the $50 million mark this year and grow further. I mean, we're not done. We've got a long ways to go.
Wow, that's an incredible scale. And it's interesting to think about where you guys started in design build and then added all these service lines along the way. What do you think was the reason new service lines and new lines of business were opened over the years?
You know, I think I'll put to explain a little bit. So David Snodgrass, president of Dennis's 7Dees, and Dean Snodgrass and Drew Snodgrass are the vice presidents. So three three brothers owned the landscape company that I originally started with. Um, yeah, that was their focus coming out of school, was the design build side of things. In they had, Dennis and Drake had the retail garden centers, but there wasn't a landscape lane. And what over the years, I mean, starting back in the '70s, literally the '70s, on the on the design build side, that was a lane that wasn't being filled. But as work continued to come up and opportunities come up, well, then we jumped into, we would like to residentially, we want to maintain the property. And then we started getting into the commercial business small. I mean, with, just small little retail centers or just a one-off office building. And then they needed the maintenance, side of things too. So it just evolved that way. It wasn't that we, intentionally said, well, we're doing this and we're going to go to that. It was like we were kind of led into those services. And then about 10 years ago, one of our commercial maintenance properties asked if we do interiors, and we're like, guess so. We'll figure it out. And so we started an interior lane too, which is kind of fun because that's got the holiday decor and all of the interior work that goes along with things. So there's not a lot of buildings, towns, properties that I can drive around anymore and not come up with a really close proximity of a project that we've done or installed many, many years ago.
That's pretty awesome. And just for the listeners to place all of this, where exactly are you guys located and operate today?
Yeah, good point. Portland metro area, and Portland metro. So that includes Vancouver, Washington. So that's a big part of our footprint. But we do have a retail garden center and landscape operation down in Seaside, Oregon, which is about a little over 2 hours from Portland metro, right on the Oregon coast.
Nice. That's a beautiful coastline too. I spent a lot of time up in Florence, and it's a nice place.
Yeah, we run all the way from like Longview, Washington, down to the Tillamook area with our services down there.
Incredible. So, what's some of the advantages that you see of being such a diversified company and being able to offer so many different services?
I think first and foremost is that, because there's ebbs and flows to the seasonality of things, from the weather perspective, but then there's also the ebbs and flows of the financial world, and one market's up and other things down, and where people are investing. And so what that's been able to do is just keep us pretty flat, pretty even. We don't have as much up and down cycle as most do, because we can shift and pivot. And if all of a sudden the general contracting world is out there throwing all kinds of federal work our way, we can shift some of the residential guys because maybe the market's a little soft, and so there's not as much work. So we've been able to pivot and change and adjust quite a bit that way.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think there's a lot of advice in a lot of companies out there kind of saying, hey, pick one thing, do it really well, do a lot of it. And I think one of the challenges with that is you end up spread over a very large geographic region to attain that 50 million in total revenue. And if you're diversified, you can end up working in a more consolidated and centralized market and providing a more horizontal or just wider breadth of services that keep kind of your clients in your service pool for all their needs. We're structured very similar down here at K&D, and it's a thing we often talk about. Should we get more focused about commercial maintenance or design build, or should we just keep doing everything? And so far, we haven't found a reason to stop doing anything. So, have you guys thought about that much?
Yeah, I mean, not saying, we don't say no often, and get ourselves sometimes going, well, I guess we got to figure it out. But, I think that, building it over time as we've done, has allowed us to grow and create opportunities. So, when we've got all these lanes, I also have really strong leadership in each one of those lanes, so they could individually go and run their own business. So our design build group could run theirs, commercial. They could all run and be successful businesses on their own because of the leadership structure and the people in charge of and the teams that they built. what we've got is our fundamentals and what the 7D structure is like and what our values are, that spreads across all of them. But we've got good leadership. I guess I'll put it that way.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Tell me a little more about how it is to be the CEO of a company like that, where you have such strong leadership at each service line.
Well, it's definitely evolved over time. I use the word evolve, reinvent, grow, and is like my personal motto, because you've got to you you got to evolve. You got to move forward. You got to reinvent. I actually had a guy that one of our past employees just retired a couple of years ago after 43 years of working with us.
Wow.
Our tenureship is kind of fun. But he had one thing he says, he's like, I always want to be the oldest young guy here. Or the youngest old guy. I said that backwards. He wants to be the youngest old guy here, because he's just always wanted to grow and improve and learn. And I think that that growth mentality and that growth mindset not only comes from just it's there's obviously top line revenue, but the reality is and I've heard Frank Mariani say this many times, but we adapted this a long time ago. But the growth comes because you want to create opportunities for everybody that works there, so that there is a place for somebody to go. And as we continue to grow and expand, those leadership roles and those opportunities continue to show up. And we've got the three brothers that own the company, but there's three of their kids that work in the business. Director of retail, director of commercial and property services, and our director of finance. And we have a design salesperson. So those guys all work in the business, and so we want to continue to create opportunities for them. So the more avenues that we jump into and the more lanes of leadership that we can provide gives people opportunities, and natural leaders just kind of show up.
I completely agree with that. If we can kind of imagine this in our heads, when you have so many different service lines, you end up with what I believe is a little more of a flat organization, and opposed to this large top end triangle looking thing, where you have, the CEO, then you have your C-suite, and then VPs, then directors. You have those service line leaders that end up probably reporting pretty much, right, like either directly to you or directly to a COO. How is that structure with you guys? Do you have these service line leaders directly reporting to you? Do they sit on a leadership team? How do you guys structure that?
I mean, it's definitely, over the last 8 years, that's really evolved a lot. 8 years ago, I was COO, and kind of, actually, I felt like I was overseeing more than I currently am.
I bet.
Because, I was just, dealing with more of the mechanic shop, the facilities, and a lot of and I'm like, at some point, this is going to break, or I'm going to break. So we just moved, just in the last 3 years, we moved to where, as CEO, I have a director team. Well, we have that each one of those directors are responsible for a revenue lane, and director of finance, director of employee success. I mean, so we followed your example on that
Nice.
title, by the way. But
Nice. Love that.
at currently, David, Dean, and Drew are, they've over time just become less and less engaged over the last 7 or 8 years. They started off building the structure of leadership, but then they said, let's let these guys do their job, and they, they're there for support. I mean, I just was on the phone with David this morning about a few things that we've got coming up, but so we do stay very connected that way, and those, I give so much credit to those three guys. But I mean, specifically, Dean was he was my mentor. He hired me. I came walking in a pair of cowboy boots and a white T-shirt, and he, growing up on a farm in Eastern Oregon, that's what I thought I should be wearing in landscaping.
Yeah.
and he just he taught me how to treat people and work with people and help them grow and make it, have people make their decisions and make difficult decisions and fun decisions. And then as time's gone along, because David was really in charge of the sales side of our business at that point for a long time, in which I was on the operations side. So I didn't really, David and I didn't have as much time, but over the last 10 years, we've definitely, you know, gotten a lot closer so I've gained a ton of knowledge from him, and it's been really unique to have two strong individuals that I actually work with on a daily basis to really help us go in the direction we are, and for them to. I mean, I am not a family member.
Right.
I've been with the company for 38 years, my last name starts with a D, not my first name. So I get to the I get to this point because there's a group of guys that just allowed me to and challenged me to become better and to grow, and they saw something in me that I didn't. And they were like, "Oh, you can do this, you can do that. Challenge yourself for this. You got to grow some teeth. You got to do this." And all the way along the lines, I just listened and learned, and got to the point where I am today. But if what the lucky part for me is that, when because I spend a lot of time, I go out to stretch with the different crews, or I meet with the different, we go to the different facilities, and I'll show up and hand anniversary gifts out to people and all that. But I get to interact with that group, and I feel like I'm still part of that group because that's where I came from. But what I have learned over time is that, I don't get now where I am and where I do sit today. I don't get the real story. Somebody wants to. I get whatever somebody thinks that the CEO wants to hear, quite often, versus actually what's really going on or really down deep. But my perspective is that's where I came from and that's where I grew up. That's where I started. So that's who who I still belong with.
How have you evolved your mindset as a leader, going from the crew and being in the field every day to now being the CEO? It's happened over, a few decades, but still, you're alluding to, I think, one of the biggest challenges leaders face with the growth in a company when you go from entry level to CEO. And I just had a Josh McMallen on from Roebuck Landscaping out of South Carolina. Similar story, 35 years, started as a crew member, worked his way up to CEO, non-family owner. Kind of cool. You guys should connect at some point. But
yeah, exactly. We should.
Yeah, I will connect you guys because I think it's a really cool story. But what do you think is that biggest challenge? Just going from that crew member all the way up to CEO. How do you have to develop your leadership capacity to enable that growth?
Well, I think there's, because I can talk from me personally how I work through it, Justin, is that being humble, understanding how hard, who really brings the money in the business, and how we really are as successful as we are is because everybody out there that's just really putting it to it every day. I mean, as anybody know, landscaping is the hardest. It is such a very hard physical job. And I just turned 60 years old this year, and I'm like, I can still do that. I can still get out and keep up with those guys, but there's no way. It's pretty amazing to see what some of these guys do every day. But I think it's the relatable experience and being humble enough to know that that's the group of people that are carrying us along, and you got to show them so much appreciation for what they do, what they bring to the table every day, and we are, as an individual blended company as we are with the a retail garden center employee is so much different than a commercial construction employee. Commercial construction guy is out there, they're tough and they're tough and rough, and they deal with a general contractor cussing them out every 20 minutes about this, that, and the other thing. And then you go to the retail side and you got Mrs. Jones walking in talking about pansies and flowers. And that's just, it's two different groups of people, which is great for us because we just have such a blended culture and a blended amount of employees. Um, but what it allows for me is to be also to see different strengths, different skill sets, and who's talking with, how well a communication can happen with this group of customers, or how fast these guys can actually get 1,000 plants in the ground. It's just,
Yeah.
it kind of blows you away. But for everybody to each tell each other's story is important to us. So we spend a lot of time making sure that all of our entities across all the channels really understand what each other does, so that they can talk and promote. You mentioned earlier about, you know, customers and how you handle the different levels of them. But we have something we call customer for life. We want somebody, and we thought about doing this video, we just haven't, or commercial that we just haven't done, is that, this homeowner wakes up, goes out in the yard, has a cup of coffee, they're standing on their back deck, and they're looking at all the perennials and everything that we've planted recently. Then they take off for work, and as they pull up into their property, they see one of our guys out there doing some maintenance on the property. They go inside the building, they see some interior stuff, and then on the way home, they stop by a retail garden center and buy a few plants, and at the end of the day, they're just the sun sets and we're all in a good spot. But that's really, if that's a vision, that's what we want for all of our customers. We want them to be able to have such a good experience through all of our channels that they think a lot of really good things about 7Ds.
I love that vision. Tell me a little bit about this, because I think this is something that our industry is well aware of, but others may not be. The experience that we can bring customers through, that is the actual real world of landscaping, and having beautiful flowers versus a overgrown backyard, having a commercial building that takes care of its landscape and does annual color changes and has beautiful trees, having an interior plantscape with potted plants and decor and everything. Can you tell me a little bit about, maybe just the improvement of someone's mental health that you personally see when you guys are able to make this impact on their entire life?
It's that's such a key element to what we do. It is, it's a job that creates revenue and all that kind of stuff. But, our employees get to go through that experience because they get to see it go from A to Z, and it's installed. But they get a moment in time and they got to leave because they're going on to the next job. The customer gets to experience that the entire time. And so much of it has to do, that messaging that you're talking about has so much to do with marketing and making sure that we're getting the right look, the right feel. Because these are fine. The commercial world, you got to spend the money, right? I mean, there's requirements and laws that say I got to do this. On the residential side, it's all about a choice. I mean, you get to decide whether you want to spend X amount of dollars or not, and you can have a choice. So we have to sell not only the fact that it will improve the value of their property, but it improves your life and your experience. And when you go out on the backyard, go into the backyard and you can have your cup of coffee, or you have your friends over for an evening. It's something you can be proud of, and you can just you basically show it off, and you've got the nightscaping lights that you're able to go, well, let's wait a little bit, wait till dusk hits. And then all of a sudden this landscape changes completely to where, that experience is what you have to really sell. And, you can do it through words, and all that. But if you've got videos, you got photographs, you've got, anything, I mean, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff on our website, we're showing a lot of that, much more than what we were able to do before when it was Polaroids. So, the world today is so much easier to share what an experience can look like, and feel like, and it is all about what it feels like.
I completely agree. That's such a great way to say it. How have you guys leaned into the marketing side? Because I think for a 70-year-old, you guys are 70 years old, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Like, congratulations on that in itself. But it does seem like a brand new company, or company started 2 or 3 years ago, tends to have, this 2025 marketing mindset. And companies that are decades older, it's a little harder to get the company into that marketing mindset and embracing social media. How have you done that as a CEO? How have you embraced the marketing and the digital transformation?
Well, I started my, you know, it's interesting because in the marketing side of things, because I've always believed it's extremely important because, that, whether it's the truck that drives by or just, or whatever way somebody is seeing your brand, it needs to, it needs to make an impression on them. And, I started, because I started on the operations side. So it was all about, well, I need marketing to get me employees. I need marketing to be out there, speaking to the general public about how great of a place it is to work here. And with all of that, where I kind of started with it, and then we start going, well, wait, customers need to have that experience. And we were outsourcing marketing for a long time. We were using all kinds of marketing firms until it was about 10 years ago. We came across a graphic artist that wanted to come in and work for us and moved up here from the Bay Area. And then we were just our um, one of the Snodgrass kids. So Kelly Kenyon's our director of marketing, and she is outstanding in that realm. And we'll sit around and go. Years ago, she'd put up something and you'd go, we don't like it, and she's like, well, she talked us into changing, and everybody's like, and then 2 years later, you're like, that is so amazing. It's like it takes a while for somebody. It's you got to be thinking so far ahead. I mean, right? Thinking about it right now and what's good right now isn't going to get you anywhere. You got to be really pushing the envelope. You got to know what's out there, and that group in our marketing department does a tremendous job of just leading us in a direction that we need to go. And the brand change, and now that we get to do some significant brand changing with it, they're all just pumped up and excited about what our look can actually morph to.
That's an exciting transition to take a company through, right? A brand change, probably stressful, a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. Yes, it is, but because you just gotta trust that what the look and the feel and everything is going to play out to be what pays dividends later on down the road. But to your point on a new company versus an old company, and old ways versus new ways, and that evolve, reinvent, grow. We've got to constantly be moving. Otherwise, that that neighbor that just started a company is, he's going to be blowing us away if we're not. We got to be ahead all the time, and we got to be working at it all the time. And we, as well as I do here in this Portland metro area, we got Bob Grover, Dean DeSantis, Mark Pyra, the leaders here.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's challenging in its own, but it's also good. It's competitive. Meaning, and good competitive. I mean, we all get along. We all work, but everybody wants to put that little barb in here and there. But but we all want to. We all want to grow the industry and make it. Get us to the point where we're treated like everybody else in the trades, and I think that's what's important. Is the landscape industry over the decades was just not thought of the trade that it is today. And I think Justin, I give you some credit on this, is that what you're doing and the trade, the trades talk and the push of things out there is changing the perception of what a landscaper and who a landscaper is and what a landscaper does. Cause it's extremely hard work, but it's so healthy, and it is so it makes people happy. And when you can walk in your backyard or all of those residual effects have a value that so many people for years just undervalued because of the guy that would come up with a mower and do it for $20, and that was the perception. Where the reality is the value that we bring to the table is so much higher than that. And if we could just push that envelope even higher, I hear your goals and where you're headed with people and staff, but it is all about the value of what we bring to the table, and I think it's important for us to stay focused on that.
Yeah, I really respect you for saying that. I appreciate all of you, what you guys do, what Bob Grover, what Mark Pyra, and really, there's these centralized places around the country that has just some amazing operators doing great things for the industry. And it is a full court press though for all of us to be pushing and raising the bar, because we have kind of, for whatever reason, we've just kind of done our job quietly. Landscaping is one of those things that is easy to take for granted, but the level of a entry level gardener who is just kind of the mow and the blow versus a high end, customer focused landscape operation like 7Ds, it's a massive difference. And I think in other trades, when you talk about HVAC or garage doors or plumbing or roofing or electrical, there is a doing the job right and then doing the job wrong, and it's kind of a bit of a black and white. And I mean, I have a ton of respect for those trades as well, but I do feel like it's hard to see an HVAC unit installed and be like, wow, that really looks good. It's either, yep, it's put in safely and clean and the connections were made professionally, or it's sloppy and it looks unsafe and it might catch on fire. But landscaping's this like wide just birth of gray areas, and you could trim the plants like this, or you can trim them naturally, or you can hedge them, or you can use PGRs, or you can go organic. Like there's so many different ways to approach it. I think we've just, in a way, to the public, we've kind of dumbed it down a little bit on purpose because it's so broad. But I really do like this movement we're on, which is bringing so much more awareness and excitement to the landscape industry.
Such good points. The other thing is that the fact that everything that we're dealing with, for the most part, except for irrigation products, which, I mean, everything has a lifespan, right?
Yes.
But in the plant world, it's a live plant, and so it can change, it can move, it can do just, I mean, it changes the dynamics of everything that we do on a daily basis.
It so does. It's
as we were thinking about, because there's growth that happens with all that, and I got to thinking about just as growth happens, in the plant world, it grows opportunities for people, and we've mentioned a few things, but the colleges and universities, and I've heard you talk a little bit about this recently, but the horticulture departments and getting interest into what we do is such a vital part of what we part of our industry as the future of what it can hold, and it's so much more attractive now because the roles, the responsibilities are changing and evolving, and to the point where there's so much more to it than just you're getting out a mower and mowing, or you're planting plants. There's so many more technical things that are creating opportunities for that college student. But we stay pretty tight with the local universities, Oregon State, Clackamas Community College, Portland Community College. Their horticulture departments are key for our business, and we have a pretty robust internship program here that for the longest time, Dean and Dave ran it, and then they passed the torch over to me about 15 years ago. And we bring 2 to 3 interns on every summer, from local, from BYU, Idaho, from Cobble Skills, New York, from Oklahoma State. We brought them from all over the country. And being a part of NCLC, I think has been a big piece of that. But the more you're engaged with that professor group, the more that professor group starts to get to know you and start sending you, just really highly talented employees. We have, I was doing the math the other day. We currently have 13 employees that currently started as interns that are with us. And some are, I mean, we're talking about 18 years, they started a long time ago and continue with us. But I don't know, I kind of spun and turned a little bit of a corner on you.
That's good. But I like it.
It just all reminds me of growth and the opportunity for bringing people along. We've got to find ways, the landscape and the trades it comes from so many different angles into the industry, but we've got to figure out a way to continue adding more and more people, because it's just the AI technology, robotics, and all that kind of stuff is moving things along, but you still need our growth is still going to happen, because there's so many other types of jobs and other types of positions that are going to evolve and come available.
I completely agree. It's an exciting time because the technicians in the field are starting to get more and more respect in the views of the technologists and the Silicon Valley and private equities. They're starting to see skilled trades, technicians, people who can, irrigate or manage a landscape as a very highly valued role, because it's not something that AI can go in and do. You can't prompt an AI agent to go mow a lawn. And while we do have robotics that are rolling out, we all know the adoption curve on robotics, and even if it moves as quick as anything in the past, it's still going to take 5 to 10 years to really become a large percentage of the work. And so finally, our technicians are starting to get the respect they deserve. And then what that then brings is an awareness and this opportunity that hasn't really been a spotlight on it, which is account manager roles, production manager roles, estimating, designers, retail staff, people who could guide someone through the landscape journey. These roles are now getting a spotlight put on them, and they're really, really cool roles for people who enjoy progress and growth. So I just see like 2 decades at least. I could see like 20 years in advance of this industry just being an incredible run for us. And so what I want to ask on the end of that, kind of talk is, out of all your positions, Nathan, at 7Ds, what position taught you the most over the last 38 years?
Well, each one of them has had quite a learning curve. I guess I'll put it that way. But it's, well, that's a huge question, because early
Right.
on, the
time.
growth and early on, the growth and understanding of what a true, what leadership is. And to me, leadership's just showing up every day. And being there for your team and being present and making some tough decisions along the way, but it's just being there and showing up. And that value I had intrinsically, just because of my background, and just, that's just what I did. And so the leadership early on came easy. It was the tough decision making, and I can just be the nice guy. I had to grow some teeth. I had to get, had to get into some things that made me uncomfortable, and learned how to have some real critical, crucial conversations. And I think that those days really brought along the fact that, well, how do you have a crucial conversation? Right. Well, you better build your facts up before you have that crucial conversation. Because if you go into it, you're going to just get destroyed if you go into it unprepared. So be prepared, do the homework, but facts speak volumes, and if you can go in and no matter what, even if I'm, whatever level I'm presenting a problem to or a solution to, it, whether it is directly to ownership or the director team, or even to a foreman that's still running a project that I need to go chat with about one thing or another. If I just bring facts and information along with it, it takes all the emotion out of that discussion, and it makes it so much easier to get to the bottom line of what we want to do and where we want things to go. And I think people respect a lot more of that versus it getting emotional. The hard part, and I would say nowadays, the hard part is getting out of my own head still. Just realizing that, you can come up with solutions, or it is okay to sit back and go, just let things play out and be patient with the process. But, I think imposter syndrome is a real thing. And I think that's what hit mostly as time went along into my COO and CEO years is that it is, I have, why do I have to answer this? Why is this coming to me? What do you think I'm really good? Can I make that? Can I do this? Can I really do this? And, getting through that and understanding that, you have to sit back and allow that, yeah, sometimes you just got to be the bottom line, and that's okay. It doesn't, your stomach churns and all that kind of stuff, and you feel there's some rough, tough decisions out there. But, but but man, they feel good when it all comes together, and you get things work out and they play out the way you want it to be. That where the success is so much more about the feeling that you get to take home at the end of the day when things have just kind of worked out the way you want it to do. And then 20 minutes later, it's like, oh no, now I got to go back into another one. So
It is. It's a crazy cycle that you can go through as CEO over the course of just a few hours of going from feeling like, man, we really are just firing on all cylinders. Everything's going great. And then you get a phone call from a client or an employee about something going wrong. And you're like, man, we have nothing, nothing's working. None of our systems are in place. You've got to really have a strong inner dialogue to combat that. Cause it is, I mean, for me, it's very tough.
yeah, it's tough, and I think it's tough for. I mean, I don't know. Unless somebody's out there that's just it's easy for them. I just don't think so.
I haven't found them yet.
No, I just being human, I think is part of the biggest, most important thing you can do, and realize that in those moments, it is landscaping, and that we can make a decision and we can move ourselves forward, and not let it just take you and spiral you into a place that you don't want to be.
Yeah. It's a good, man, it's a hard thing. So a question I want to ask here is, working in a family business, it has unique challenges. And I actually want to just point out the fact that you talked about the facts and really coming with those, because the emotions can tend to cloud our discussions. I feel like that is like 2 or 3x in a family company when you've got family dynamics in the room. It's like, I don't know, maybe it's easier to just say things to family that you wouldn't say to normal people. How is it, maybe let's just go like this is the question I think I'm trying to ask is, what is your advice for other entrepreneur style people who want to go in and maybe become the CEO of a family business one day and are working within that family dynamic as a non-family member? What's your advice to them as far as working through that process, being on the leadership team, and how have you gone about being successful at it?
Good question. So I think that because thinking about this little podcast we're going to do, I'm like, as I've gone forward through the different positions and career moves and changes and stuff, what I realize is that in each one of those roles, as I moved into the next role, I was already doing the next role before I got there. Meaning that I was charging forward. I didn't second guess. When I was running just scheduling and coordinating, I was digging into financials and looking at why one thing or another didn't work out, or why the numbers needed to change up or over here, and then I needed to figure out why the mechanic, our fleet world wasn't doing what it needed to do. Just going out of my way and to do things that were already playing up to another level. And I think that's an important thing that I'm talking about here, because as I've been watching our leadership team grow and evolve, the individuals that are growing and evolving in those leadership teams take on greater roles until the role becomes theirs. And they take on those roles and responsibilities somewhat without being asked to, because they see a need. Yeah. But they also have the skill set to be able to handle it. Where we have failed in that is put people in positions before they were ready and had the skill set to be able to do it. And I think that, to your point, as a family business that's grown over the years, we've made plenty of mistakes too. And we've put people in positions that shouldn't have been there, or made hires that weren't the right ones. But and I've heard this many, many times over all the different seminars and webinars and everything, but there are people that are really good at a certain level. And in your head, you're thinking, well, they'll be great at the next level. I think they need to demonstrate that next level more consistently than just giving them that role. And that, that's a big piece that I've learned. I mean, I've had to make, those are the most difficult, crucial conversations, right? When you get to the point where you've got somebody in, that you really personally enjoy and like, and there's a good, really good, strong relationship there, but they aren't doing the role and they aren't right for the role. And those are the hardest ones to get through, because you look at the personal impact you have, but then you got to look around the room and around the entire business. Well, everybody in the business knows what's going on. They're waiting for you to make a move. They're waiting for you to make a decision that they already know you should have made a long time ago. And those are I think are the hardest, but I think those are the ones that I've kind of learned over the years, that you've got to be faster with it because of the impact that it causes to everybody else.
Yeah, well, that makes total sense. Is if you're questioning someone's ability to be in a specific role, chances are the majority of the company sees the obvious and is like, what are you waiting for?
Yeah. So what are you waiting for? And why isn't that opportunity being opened up for me? Because I've shown it, I've demonstrated, and I'm ready to move forward. And there's this individual that's kind of holding me back. Well, so I think that's just one of the things that I've learned over the years. But I think that's also back to your original question, is that as I've developed through this company and this organization, that it's about being already doing the job before the actual role becomes my full responsibility, and then being able to walk into being able to walk into ownership and go, because I've been through those situations where I'm like, this individual running this is not the right one to doing it. And I'm like, I walk in and go, we got this. They don't need to be here anymore. I could do this. I go and grab other people. I grab their partnerships, because that's the other thing. Is like, there's so many strong individuals in the world out there that know so much more than I do. That I want them to come work for us and be successful in the lane that they can be.
Gosh, I really like the way you're explaining this. I'm picking up on humility, but I'm also picking up on confidence at the same time. Can you explain that a little bit more, as much as you can, the balance and the dance that you have to have? Because if you're so humble and you never ask for that next opportunity, you may just be that really hardworking person that kind of gets passed up for people who are a little more confident, even if they go up and fail. So how do you stick with, stay humble and honor that, but also have the confidence to walk into ownership and say, hey, I'm ready for the next level. I'm ready for that next position?
Yeah, I'll put it to, we call it career development. And it's a program that we started this goes back to that guy I was talking about that retired, that's worked with us for 43 years. Him and I put together, we called a career development program, where it was basically giving people the opportunity to be heard and listened to and taught and trained and developed going forward. And it's taken so many iterations over the, I think we did this in like 1998, where it was on a monthly basis, you would have a discussion with somebody about one thing or another. And we had a list of, and this is all very operationally based, but it's evolved throughout the entire company over the years. But the idea to be able to have that confidence is because somebody had given me that confidence, Justin. It's like somebody internally, whether it's a coworker or even ownership themselves, has come and said, yeah, you can do this. Or that confidence comes from learning and listening to those around you, because they're trying to lean you and push you in a direction. And I think career development for us is extremely important, because I was talking, a little side note, I was just talking to our director of design build the other day about his top foreman. He's got 6 foremen right now that, I'd put them on any project that could ever need to be built. They're just the strongest, most phenomenal guys. And every one of them started as crewman, leadman, and we had to shove every one of them into the foreman position. because
Yep.
I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Yes, you're ready. Well, you're going to go. I mean, we got to do this job. Here's the track. Go to work. And they'd pull it off and they'd gain a little bit of confidence and gain a little bit more confidence. But it's all about seeing and without career development, you don't see the strengths in people. So you've got to really look at it as I have a pathway for you. Do you want it? And a lot of times people will say, no, I'm not ready for it. But you just got to keep throwing those carrots out and throwing them into lanes of things. And then before you know it, they are down the road and that confidence gets internally built, whether you like it or not, because wait, I can do that. And it's an amazing thing to see. And for me, the best part about that is I get to walk out on their honor right around an anniversary and give them a little gift that we come up with that I just to get to tell them thanks and have a personal conversation with now 350 employees throughout the year. So it's a lot of fun to be a part of this and watch it grow and to see people to go from where they were to where they currently are today. And, I don't look at myself as that story very often.
Right.
Because I've lived it, but I see it through others. And I want to, I want to make sure that everybody else has that opportunity, that's out there in front of them if they'll just grab it.
Yeah, you guys have so many. I can already see there's probably hundreds of stories inside the company of these success stories. And I think the big point here that is really good for all the leaders to hear is if you build a career path and you build an operating company and it's growing and you have all these opportunities, and then you're sitting back and you're wondering why no one is jumping for that next promotion, I think it's because fundamentally this industry is very humble. And people are afraid of messing up, afraid of moving up into that next position. And you really have to coach and push them into that next spot, whether it's a crew leader or it's a production manager or supervisor or account manager. I feel like we've always had to push our team, but once you push them once or twice, they start to get momentum. And then it's like this vacuum or this flywheel that starts moving. But I can definitely agree. I've seen a lot of our team members just hesitate to take that next step until they're really pushed into it.
Well, in my world, seeing a beautiful landscape is one thing, but seeing a guy or gal go from where they were to where they currently are today and have them realize and recognize that's the best part of the job. I mean, to be able to have somebody just come in and say, even to say thank you. Now, for wherever we've taken him to, but another interesting side note. So we have, so many people that have came through our company over the years. Some own other companies throughout the state, throughout the country that I get phone calls all the time. Hey, Nathan, do you remember that time? Thanks a lot for taking me through that. And just, it's a unique, fun part to be a part of people's lives and existence, even though they're not 7D's employees anymore, but you know what? They still think of themselves as 7D's employees. They know that
cool.
that's where they came from. And, and it's a lot of fun to be able to take those phone calls and listen to, some of those great guys out there that are running their own very successful businesses. We couldn't wish them more than the best of luck as they go on, because the lane that they needed to be in was their pathway, and we don't want to hold them back from that, and to give them that kind of an opportunity and bandwidth, and to not shoo them off and say, well, never talk to me again. What fun is that? We got them to the point where they were ready to start their own thing. Well, let's go.
It's like the biggest honor is when someone can take the understanding, the lessons and the education that was shared and then go on to, follow their own entrepreneurial journey in this industry. And it's cool. You've been a regular in the disruptor calls we've been having and in the group. And I love that group because I get to see both sides of it. I get to see the really established, well-built companies continuing to advance and learn. But we have guys like, Tyler and Jason and all these guys who have like 2 or 3 employees, and you hear them show up every Tuesday. You just feel for them because you know how big of a challenge they are in right now. But it's cool to be able to show them, here's where we're at today, and you guys could be here if you just keep your heads down, keep moving.
Well, the the greatest thing, I mean, I really enjoy those calls because as a forever learner, right? I'm always wanting to learn and grow and develop myself. I those guys have there's something that they bring to the table every week that I learn from, and it's not, you don't you just don't show up and go, well, I know it all, and I don't need to learn from anybody. It's like, because there's a new nugget that comes out of everything. That's, whether it's what we're doing on the disruptor call, or the lawn and landscape stuff that's coming up this week, or at NALP events, or any, it's like, go to those things and just take nuggets away. You don't have to learn 1,000 things at them, just 1, 2, or 3, because what you can adopt, and what you can take on is just, it helps you grow personally and professionally. The idea that, you're only going to do it just for your business, is one thing, but there's so many things you take out and you learn you treat your wife better, or you talk, there's so many different things, and family wise, that come out of it too. And that's, to your point on the industry, Justin, about the humbleness, and it's humble, it's kind, it communicates well. It shares, you got competitors in your local community that you can chat with, but the competitors are not competitors, but partners basically across the country. I mean, I can pick up and call Tim Portland with Yellowstone, and that guy will give you some of the best advice in the world. And by the way, that guy, he's amazing. And I called him like the first time 8 years ago or so. We're just about to jump on a spire, and he trying to give us some, what do you think about this? And, a guy that, that size of business, he knew now down to the nitty gritty of what was happening in all the lanes. It was pretty impressive. But those kind of connections just help you grow as a business, but also grow as a person.
I totally agree. It's really this personal journey that we're all kind of on together. And the business is where we can come together and create economic value and create, financial freedom, hopefully one day for our families. But ultimately, we're all growing as human beings on this journey. And, it's funny. That's like the third time Tim Portland has come up in the last 3 podcasts I've had. Jerry Show brought him up. Josh McMallen brought him up. He has impacted me at a very deep level. We were in Colorado and we were at dinner, and I just got lucky enough to sit next to him. And for 3 hours, his wife was there as well. And she was just kind of rolling her eyes because he unpacked their entire onboarding strategy when they purchase a new company, and just shared his entire playbook. And I just was in such awe, not only of the geniusness of the playbook, but also the openness that he has to share and to raise the bar.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, raising the bar is such a key point to it too, because I think we're all working to raise the bar for the industry, and nobody, it just feels it's a fun place to work. I mean, obviously, yes, I've worked at 7 Dees for 38 years, but I've worked in the landscape industry for 38 years. It's been a home for me. And created a lifestyle for me and a future and all that kind of stuff. And I've grown a family because of it, and I have grandkids and all that kind of stuff. But it has to do with just the simplicity, the humbleness, and the way that people kind of work together in our industry. It's a good place to be.
It really is. Yeah, I'm glad we're hitting on this, because it's sometimes taken for granted. I definitely have taken it for granted over the years. Yeah, it's a great industry. So Nathan, as we start to wrap up the podcast, and I just want to thank you for your time and your openness, and how much you shared today, and how much you always share when you and I chat. And you guys set a great example for this industry. And I wanted to ask you, the end of this podcast, and every podcast, is the trade secret. And so I want to ask you for your trade secret, your piece of advice that you would give people listening based on your experience in the industry.
Well, I've alluded to it before, but the way there are so many smart people out there, coworkers that work in your company that can do it so much better than you. Don't stand in their way. You need to lift them up. Do what you can to lift them up to be able to be as successful as they can be, because it makes your job easier and it makes it so much more of a great atmosphere to work in. If people realizes because the analogy of, you're on a pedestal and anybody trying to climb up on that pedestal and you're stomping on their fingers, that's the opposite of what we are. I mean, you're taking a hand down, you're lifting them up and actually pushing them above you, because there's so much more that that individual can take, where they can take you is so much further than you can take it personally. But you got to get out of your own way and let them go.
Yeah. That is such great advice. And I a follow-up to that, if you don't mind, was there a point in your career where that became obvious, and before it was maybe not so obvious that actually helping people grow around you, below you, above you is a key part of your personal success?
Yeah, I absolutely. And it's been a while. I mean, I bet it was 15 plus years ago that, I was just trying to grind it out, do it myself. I got to figure this out. I got to be the one that does the spreadsheet. I got to be the one that build this or read that or set up this training program and all that kind of stuff. And just at some point, and then, like recently you put it to now, and then go, well, somebody that's got AI figured out, they can do it in 5 minutes and it takes me 3 hours. It's like, but letting somebody else take that and run with it. One is it just helps them grow. I mean, it helps them take that and grow that confidence and stuff. But man, people can do it so much better than you. And there's strengths and weaknesses in everybody. And you just got to lean into the strengths and let your own weaknesses back off.
Well, that's great advice. And that's a great way to end the podcast. So Nathan, thank you so much for coming on. What's a good way to get if I feel like listeners always want to maybe ask a question or two. Are you on LinkedIn? What's a good way to get a reach out to you?
Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn, under Nathan Dirksen, and then on, Nathan D at dennis7ds.com is my email address. And we'll be soon changing that from Dennis7Ds to just 7Ds, but it's Nathan D at Dennis7Ds.com.
Awesome. Thank you for offering that up too. I will say, just knowing you over the last little bit here, really getting to know you lately, I've just been really appreciative of how much you share, how open you are, and what you're doing for the industry. So thank you. The industry's better off with you guys in it and with what you're doing. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Justin. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for tuning in to Trades Talk, where the next generation of disruptors comes to raise the bar. If you got value from today's episode, share it with someone in the trades who's ready to level up. For more tools, insights, and community, follow host Justin White and join the movement at jwhitegroup.com.